I should have been leery of it. When we were doing highway security in the Diomang Pass, we had outposts along the road to protect convoys coming from Quy Nhon to An Khê.
Right.
I got a call on the radio that a unit was heavily engaged in the Ia Drang Valley. The first of the 7th was engaged. So I was to assemble my guys on the highway, and we would be picked up. Well, normally that meant that the Hueys would come in and we'd load in and whatever. I look up, I get a call from a helicopter that says 2 CH-47s inbound and the big 40 Chinooks. And I'm going, obviously you got the wrong location, because we're supposed to be doing an air assault into wherever. Well, they landed. I jumped up on the skid and talked to the pilot, and he said, no, we're supposed to be taking you to an LZ Columbus. And I said, well, do we have fire? Has the LZ been prepped and whatever? Where is it? Because I don't have any maps. And well, he said, I'll give you the one map that I have to get in. Well, that should have raised a flag right there. So I called my boss on my communications, and he said, all I know, Captain, is you have been told to go from where you are into Columbus. So we loaded onto these CH-47s and did an unsupported assault into Columbus.
Was there anyone there?
There was nobody there.
No artillery?
Nothing. No artillery, nothing.
No prep?
No prep, no recon, nothing. So we get in there. Fortunately, the bad guys don't know. They either believe that these guys are absolutely crazy, or this is some kind of surprise maneuver. But we went in there Joe, it was, fortunately for us, there was nobody there.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing, because we would have been history. We landed. I was finally able to get a hold of Hal Moore's S3 and tell him where we were. And he said, well, you guys need to get in to Columbus. You're I think maybe 4 clicks away. So we walk into X-ray.
And this is on the second day of the fight?
This is on the second day of the fight.
November 15th, 1965.
Right. We walk into LZ.
What'd you see on the way?
Lots of dead bodies. And I said to my RTO, this ain't looking so nice. I think we have just walked into hell. When we got into the LZ, the first guy that I saw was Hal Moore. I knew Hal Moore's reputation. I had never served on him. I didn't know him at Fort Benning or whatever. And he just said, get your ass in the line and hold. And that's what I did. I saluted and went into the line. And we were there that second night when they really tried to take the place. I think that's, you had been there one night already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was tired.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a shocker. I mean, I had imagined in naivete that what combat would really be like. Wasn't anything like I thought it was going to be. I mean, I was petrified.
Now you're in the line, and there are attacks underway.
Your
guys are firing.
We're holding off. In my sector, we repelled, I know, at least 3 attacks or probes. They weren't major attacks, but they were pretty heavy.
Serious probes.
There were serious probes.
You lose anybody in that?
Didn't lose anybody because we went into a position that had been vacated, so the holes were already there, so we didn't have to dig, and we were because we had we were supplied. We had all of our basic load of ammunition, so we were set. We had all of our water, so it was we didn't lack for resources, so we were pretty solid, and I think. Probably present for duty, maybe 97 guys, 98.
Moore and his battalion are withdrawn.
Right.
And 2nd of the 7th has moved in.
Right.
What do they tell you?
Well,
is your battalion there?
No.
Just you?
Just me. Just lonely, little old me. Little old me. The 2nd of the 5th commander was a guy named Tully.
Stuttering Bob.
Bob Tully, who I knew because we were in the same brigade. Plus, his nephew, Buse, had B Company in my battalion.
In your battalion.
In my battalion. But what I didn't know is that Tully was going to move out. And he wasn't taking me with him. Mm-hmm. In fact, another battalion had come in, 2nd of the 7th, under McDade to replace Hal Moore. At morning briefing, they told us that we're putting in an arc light, which is a B-52 strike. And you have to get outside of that box, the 3-mile box. And so I'm thinking, okay, the helicopters are coming to save us because they always came. I mean, we very rarely did we walk someplace and walk back because the choppers were always there. However, the word came down that we were going to walk out of there. And I'm going, ladies, excuse my French, but I use, as my mother used to say, the old bad language. But being an infantry trained captain who saluted and did an about face and said,
and they've told you you're attached to this guy.
You're attached to the
2nd of the
7th, and you will be walking out. Now, the McDade said, this is the order of march, and you're last. Not again. Not again. Well, for me, this was a blessing in disguise because on the way up there, we had probably limited intelligence. I don't know about the other guys, but I had no intelligence of what to expect or what had happened, because there was some fighting up in and around Albany that I read later or knew after the fact. But that morning, I had no clue of what was going on or what we were supposed to do, other than...
Neither did McDade.
Right. Right. Other than the fact that we needed to get outside of that box as quickly as we could, because the last thing I wanted to do was to be caught in a B-52 strike.
And you're the last guy out of the box.
And I'm the last guy out of the box. Well, having good NCOs, Sergeant Klug said to me, sir, we need to, because we don't know what's going on, so we need to at least have some kind of tactical integrity so that if something does happen, we're prepared. So we took the the Benning School for moving in unfriendly areas. So you do the security and whatever, and you and forward side, rear, whatever. So we've been walking probably a couple hours, and the column stopped. And the word came over the radio that I want all the commanders to come forward. That the lead element had either approached Albany or were in Albany. And so I'm assuming that the reason for us coming forward is he was going to, McDade was going to deploy the unit. I didn't question why he didn't use the radio to do that. So I saddled up my radio operators, Larry Hess and Jimmy Smith, and we walked up the column. Well, on the way up the column, I'm seeing guys sitting on their packs and smoking and joking and
eating C's
and
sleeping,
picnic. This is where the story gets difficult, because I often think about, why didn't I, as an officer, say to these guys, you need to get up and at least be prepared for whatever, any unexpected. And I didn't do that. So when you first called me to talk about this book, I'm not only carrying around the guilt of the guys that I lost, but not fulfilling my obligation to those other guys who I knew were not doing what they were supposed to do. And so that's a demon that I'm just getting rid of. But when we get up to the front of the column, there's incoming mortar rounds. And I'm going, are those our guys? Or are they prepping the LZ? And are they securing the LZ? Because we would do recon by fire often. But when they started to fall close, I said to my two, we need to get the hell out of here. So we take off, back down the trail. My guys are with me, because if I moved, it didn't matter. They were there with the handset always. And I'm
Now, are you running?
I'm running.
Now, are you getting fire from the side?
I'm getting fire from the side. I see guys fighting, but I know that for me, the safest place
is with
with my guys, because I know that if I can get back to Rogers and Perp and Freddie and Larry Hess and Terry Martell and Jim Patswell, I'm good. I'm good to go, because I know that these guys will fight like hell to survive. Well, along the way, I'm thinking, and I would like to think that these guys were at least killed or wounded running and not suffer some kind of horrible death. And because of my anxiousness to get back, I assumed that they were there.
Behind you.
That they were there. And when I got into where my guys were, they weren't. They were 2 of the 17 that I lost.
Now, how far behind were they when they were hit? Do you know where they were?
Joe, I don't know because I think I was going pretty quick. and bullets kind of make you do that. They make you move a little faster.
Motivate you.
It's a motivator. They are big motivators. And because of habit, I assume, because I never had to look for them.
They were always there.
They were always there. And if I went like this, there was a handset for me to talk into. But I didn't need the handset, so I didn't turn back to see if they were still with me. And I think they were killed as we were running back.
Yeah. All right. You get back to your company. What do you do then?
Then my instincts take over. My command, training, whatever. We circle. We get in our perimeter. Everything inside that circle is good. And heaven help you if you're outside. And we hunker down for the night.
You're being probed?
We're being probed. We get a call about midnight that there are still some guys left in the ambush site. And we get this radio call from call sign Ghost 466. And he says that he's wounded. And there are some wounded guys out there. So I make the decision that I'm going to go get him. Well, Fred Klug said, sir, you can't help those guys that are out there, and we need you here. So he said, I'll go. And he took a medic, Daniel Torres, and stretchers for what I assumed were a couple of wounded that we were going to bring back. So they get out there, and Klug calls me and he says, sir, we don't have enough stretchers. So somebody's going to have to stay out here and tend to the wounded while I bring the wounded that we can back.
And the walking.
Well, Torres says, I'll stay. And he's armed with a .45 pistol, which is what the medics carry. And
didn't somebody leave him an M60?
I think he found an M60. Found it in the.
I know he had one.
He had one in the melee. I think he retrieved.
Policed one up.
Right.
He also policed up 20 or 30 wounded
guys. Yes. Yeah.
That would have died out there.
That would have died, except for his act of bravery.
Incredible act.
Incredible act. If anybody should have gotten the Medal of Honor,
that was it. We tried to find him for years.
Daniel Torres, but he was a really shy guy who I don't remember ever hearing him speak more than in a whisper. He was just that kind of a gentle soul, and I can still see his face. But this was a special group. This was a special group of men, Joe. In spite of what the country thought about them, they were some hell of a soldiers. Mm-hmm. I lost 17, had 47 wounded.
That's 60% casualties.
Right. 2 lieutenants, lost Shorty Rogers, Sergeant Vaught, 2 radio operators. Took me a long time. It took me a lot of years to get over the fact that, like Hal Moore said, I survived and they didn't. What was God's plan? I mean, who knows? And I think what helped me move past this was at one of our reunions, I was lamenting the fact that the number of guys that I'd lost. And I had a young 18-year-old come up to me and say, I'm here because you helped my father survive. Mm. And that helped me move past the guilt that I harbored, because it took you a long time to find me.
You hid well.
And it was because I felt like I had failed these guys. When I think about them, it's hard because I had to write the letters, and the saddest of all of these losses was this kid named Ackerman. He was not an outstanding soldier, but he was a soldier. And during the battle, it was reported that he was wounded and that he was evacuated. Well, in December, 4 months after, or a couple of months after the battle, I get a letter from his mother that says she hasn't heard from this kid in a couple of months, and it was not like him not to write. Well, we started to check the hospital, and there was no record of him having been evacuated. So he was killed in the battle and laid out there until April of the following year, when Hal Moore took a group back in and we found his boots.
To find the four missing.
And Ackerman was one of those guys. The hardest thing that I have ever had to do was to write to that kid's mother and tell her that we left him on the battlefield. When we got that order that we were going to go someplace that I didn't have a clue of how to fix it if it got broke, and not having some kind of control over the destiny of my guys. That's worse. It's the worst feeling that I have ever had. And I promised myself that I would never let this happen again. That night, I finally got back in touch with my battalion commander, and he sent B Company, and we married up, pushed the perimeter out, spent a quiet night, and then the next morning went out into the LZ. I don't remember the exact casualty count, but some of those companies ahead of me, like Jack Smith's company.
Only 8 guys left.
8 guys left. Because they were this was a classic L-shaped ambush that I got into trouble when I went back to the advanced course, because they were teaching it as a meeting engagement. And I raised my hand and I said, if I have a meeting engagement like that, I don't want to meet the guy who arranged the meeting.
Yeah.
It was a classic ambush.
It was a classic ambush.
And the combat effectiveness of that battalion was impacted. I mean, Smith's company was totally wiped out, either in killed or wounded. And for us, the lesson I told my boss when I got back, please, 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 don't ever attach us to anybody without some assurance that when I get in trouble, at least somebody's going to help me. And the rest of the third brigade went back to Thanksgiving dinner. We went on to Bong Song and fought the next big fight. So we didn't load up our trucks and go back and have turkey and whatever. We went right up into Pleiku and over near the coast and fought. I think that operation was called White Wing Masher.
White Wing Masher or White Wing.
Right. Yeah. And so this my battalion was the lead battalion in that operation. So we went right back into the fight. And at that time, I had guys who were 15 days from D-Rose. And to motivate these guys to go back out there. But I'll tell you what, Joe, it made us a better company. After that fight, I would have put my company up against any company in the division. They were sharp. I didn't have to remind them to clean their weapons. There were no complaints about how much ammunition they would have to carry. There was no complaints about water, and there was no complaints about walking. And they didn't cuss the helicopter pilots when they didn't come because the dust-offs, they were always there. It made an indelible imprint in my brain, on my brain, that you can go to hell and come out on the other side and be better for it. Because that's what we did.
Coming out of that battle, what were your emotions?
I was exhausted. I think fear drains your energy. And you don't realize it at the time. You know, when people talk to me about this run, and it gets longer,
what are you up to, 1,000 yards now?
I'm at least 4 football fields. Fear is that too is a motivator, because people ask me, why did you do it? Did you do it for what? No, I was scared. And the only safe place for me on that battlefield that day was with my guys. And so the closer I got to them, my confidence gained. I gained my confidence. But I was emotionally drained for 2 weeks after that, because you're still dealing with the emotion of when you go in formation and Rogers is not there, and he's the first platoon sergeant and was always the first one up in the morning. He's not there. Sergeant Vaught is not there. Larry Hess, who was my OCS guy, is not there. My XO is not there because he's wounded. And so I'm kind of at a loss because habit, I'm looking for these guys. And so the emotional drain was, and it really didn't go away until 1993 when we went back, and I got to sit down with the guys on the other side.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine what the emotional drain on them must have been, because like us, they were not warmly welcomed when they went home because they had lost this battle. And so
They didn't get to go home.
they didn't get to go home.
They get to fight
They get to
for 8
fight
more
for-
years.
These guys must have been mentally so tough, because if you ever walk through an area after B-52s have been on it, I mean, the craters are bigger than this room.
Yeah.
And can you imagine looking up and seeing this
String of
string of
bombs coming.
bombs, and they're all weigh 500 pounds?
Yeah.